Hello, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. Hope you're having a brilliant day and welcome to the Polyhedra Show. So today we're diving into AI and decentralized data and the exciting partnership that's been struck between Polyhedra and the Graph. Joining us is Marcus Rain from Edge and Node. They are the minds behind and creators of the Graph, which is a protocol at the forefront of decentralized data indexing. And of course, Eric, our Chief Strategy Officer at Polyhedra, who's going to be helping us break down what this means for the future of scalable, verifiable applications. So I'm really excited for this one. And having said that, let's get straight into it. Thank you so much for joining us today, Eric and Marcus.
GM. Hey, Marcus.
GM, everyone. How's it going?
I guess it's only GM for us on the East Coast. It's nice to have someone who's basically my neighbor on this show for a change.
Yeah.
Welcome to the show. I know our community has been really excited about this partnership. And, as we are kind of a couple months into the testnet, I wanted to bring you on to just share a little bit more about the Graph. And for those that aren't familiar, maybe we can start with just, what is the Graph and what do you guys enable for blockchains and for developers that want to build on top of them?
Yeah, great question, Eric. Thanks for having me on. Yeah, the Graph is a protocol that allows developers to have a very good read experience from over 100 blockchains right now. And now EXP Chain Testnet is supported. And just backing up a little bit, the write to blockchain has been optimized for years now. Basically, do you want to write transactions? You can do that. Now, getting that data into a way that is organized and then therefore easily accessible and readable and performant for your dApps, for your DEXs, that's something that the Graph is really focused on. So you'll see a lot of DeFi powered by the Graph. You'll see a lot of different types of applications that require analytics powered by the Graph. And now we're talking about AI, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, well, you read my mind. That was exactly where I was going to go. EXP Chain, we've decided to build this chain based on our expertise in zero knowledge and how we think it can be applied to AI and specifically ZKML and verifiable AI. But, as an industry, and right now I'm speaking about blockchain, we have obviously seen a recent kind of surge in the interest in AI, this idea of decentralized AI agents. How have you guys been experiencing that surge? I know that maybe there's a shift in the types of data and the types of subgraphs that you guys are seeing populated. Have you guys noticed anything, kind of any changes to the types of projects that are reaching out or utilizing your APIs, the types of subgraphs that are being created? And I guess I did jump the gun again. I guess maybe before that, because I'm using subgraphs like everyone knows what I'm talking about. But maybe you can talk about how do you guys actually make it more efficient to read? What are subgraphs?
Yeah, great question. Yeah, and we'll just go through a medium to high level overview. Essentially, subgraphs are APIs, and for the non-technical folks out there, APIs are essentially locations where data is organized, and you can get that data. And subgraphs do a very good job at providing developers a way to have that data be organized in a super customizable way. You could pick transformations, which basically take the data from the chain and does either mathematics to it or rearranges it and does it in a way that is more helpful for the developer. And that is a subgraph. Now, the subgraph network that we have, and it is a network, we have a network of over 100 indexers around the world. Indexers essentially house copies of these subgraphs around the world and do it in a decentralized way. And that's a huge advantage of the Graph, where there's no vendor lock-in. You're actually having a competitive marketplace that are really trying to compete for your queries and basically trying to say, hey, use my index or use my index or use my service. And that is essentially what the Graph is, the network of people. And they have these databases that house all of these subgraphs, and they do it in a way that is a decentralized product for developers to use, and then therefore get this information from the blockchain to their applications in a super fast way.
Now, if I'm a developer and I I have an idea for an application that I want to build, and I have an idea of the type of data that I need to power that application. And let's say that that subgraph doesn't already exist. How would you go about, I guess, creating that subgraph or proposing that subgraph and then having these indexers go out and facilitate that for you?
Yeah, there's a process to this. And you want to think about this in terms of middleware, where subgraph is in between the front end and the chain. So you have to think in terms of both as you're developing. So it's an interesting mindset to get into. If you own the smart contract and you're actually editing the smart contract, you're actually building it out, you have more control, and it's best to think in terms of events. And we'll get into a little bit of developer speak right now, but essentially events are fantastic and are easily consumed by subgraphs. Now, subgraphs can look at other different types of data in a smart contract. However, events are the best. So emit high quality events at the right time, with the right amount of information, and you're set on the smart contract level. From there, if you've pretty much had some really good events coming out of your smart contract, you might not need a whole lot of subgraph development experience, because a subgraph essentially takes those events and organizes them into a database pretty much from day zero, whenever that smart contract was launched, all the way to chain head, and puts them into the database. So as long as those events are emitted and they're high quality, you might not need to be a subgraph developer. You just simply go ahead and do the boilerplate subgraph. It grabs the events automatically, and you just press deploy, and you can go ahead and start querying that endpoint. And that's what I'd recommend if you have the smart contract. If you don't have the smart contract and you want to do some transformations, you kind of have to go into subgraph development, understand how to transform that data a little bit to make the database be exactly how you like, because the smart contract developer may have not organized their events how you liked. In terms of the development process to production, when you're in development, you're given a rate limited API that you can go ahead and send your queries to and test and go ahead and do iterations. And that is a private endpoint, and it's not available to the public. When you're ready to publish it to the graph network, to all the hundreds of indexers around the world, you click a little publish button and you incentivize them to index your API, your subgraph, with GRT. And that's the native token. That's the token that is powering, the utility token that's powering our protocol. So yeah, essentially figure out the middle in between the front end and the smart contract. That's where you want to live. If you have the smart contract, have good events coming out. And then from there, work in Subgraph Studio, which allows you a development environment for iteration and testing. And when you're ready for production, to remove rate limiting, click on publish and incentivize indexers around the world to get to work.
Got it. And you kind of answered my question there. I was about to ask, what happens if you're not the smart contract owner? Because I know a lot of people are thinking about, especially in an AI context, thinking about building applications, utilizing data that, maybe they don't have the opportunity to put in this perfect format for the graph.
Sure. And if you are not the smart contract developer and you need some different ways of accessing the data, we have so many different ways to do that. We can go all the way to looking at, we could do call handlers, we could do block handlers. We can go ahead and actually basically look at calls to basically the smart contract. And for those who don't know what calls are, basically it's interacting with it actively. Like we can actually go in and make a call to a view or a pure function in the smart contract, and then from there get that data. And that's another way Subgraph can interact with it. It slows it down a little bit because we have to interact with an Ethereum node to get that, but at the same time, that's still quite fast. And then if you're truly an enterprise where you have crazy amount of information that you are desiring and you need to be like pinned at chain head, we have another product that is designed for enterprise solutions called substreams. So subgraphs are for, I'd say, 95% of use cases, especially, and maybe even more, in just getting started with the graph. I'd highly recommend starting with subgraphs. It's a simpler way of developing an API and actually having it be customizable and understanding how to work with it. And when you get that, and when you're ready to go on to the next level and really have an enterprise solution, substreams is the way to go.
Amazing. And so you also spoke a little bit about this, but I know that there are alternatives that are more centralized, that may be competitive in certain, performance characteristics. If you were, if a developer was coming to you and saying, comparing between a centralized solution and what you guys have to offer, how would you, what are the primary differences, considerations that they should take in when they're making that decision?
And I think I'll just throw this question right back at you and I guess the audience right now, where what are the tactics of Web 2 companies that want to keep their users from doing anything or like going out to any other location? We see vendor lock-in from our competitors, and that's a big deal because they'll release one feature that once you start using it and you rely on your product to use that feature, then you're stuck unless you want to do the extra work of shifting out. We do not do vendor lock-in. All of our code is open source. We share it all. We are the OG originators of subgraphs, and we are continuously working on the indexing software. We're continuously working on subgraphs and now substreams. And so the entire value set of the graph is rock solid, where we are a true marketplace, and the marketplace is competing for your queries and your development, as opposed to other solutions, which are fantastic. There's other solutions that are fast and performant. However, without a network, their fundamentals involve centralization. So we're really happy to bet on our indexers who, if anyone out here is technical, you're more than welcome to learn about the indexing stack and actually become an indexer. And from there, you can go ahead and start participating in the graph network and earning a return on that just because you are organizing a database and doing it in a performant way and competing in a marketplace. And it's pretty cool.
That's awesome. And obviously we see a lot of value there. That's why you're one of our, first partners on EXP chain. So let's jump back to kind of the AI discussion that we started opening up a little bit earlier. Have you guys seen a shift in the type of data or the type of subgraphs that are being created with this increased interest in AI and decentralized AI and AI agents and such?
Yes, and actually I'm going to put a link right in the chat here specific to that, where years ago, the graph partnered with Messari. And for anyone in crypto, you all know who Messari is: analytics. And Messari worked on creating standardized subgraphs. Now, this is a dashboard that's not really meant for public facing. I mean, it is public facing, of course, but it's really developers are using this dashboard. And the entire intent of Messari is to create a standardized schema. And what that means is standardized database for consumption and to allow the data to be more accessible, regardless if you're looking at a Uniswap or a SushiSwap or any of these different DEXs or any of these different applications. Like you look at NFTs, there's a standardized to interact with that data. And so this was years ago. And wouldn't you know it, standardization of schemas is really important for artificial intelligence. Wouldn't you know it? Naming conventions, really important for artificial intelligence. And so not only do we have these subgraphs that are already in production, these are already live on the graph, and their schemas are standard based on categories, of course. Sometimes there's a DeFi exchange, and that schema is standardized, and sometimes there's an NFT marketplace, and that's going to be its own schema. You're not going to have pure, one schema to rule them all, not yet, at least. But this is a huge asset to developers who are looking for high quality organized data in a database that has been verified by a team of highly trained professionals and has been doing it for years. So all of these subgraph endpoints are available. These are public and ready for you guys, developers out there. And then also on top of that, we're releasing a feature in the next, I'm going to say X amount of weeks to months, because I don't want to put pressure on our developers, but X amount of weeks or months is going to go by, and we're having what's called subgraph composability, where there's a single subgraph that, let's say, has its schema 95% the way that you like it. The database is 95% there. In the past, what you have to do is literally copy the code and make an entirely new database and have it be, basically copying 95% of it and then changing just 5% to get what you want. With composability, you don't have to do that anymore. You're basically taking a subgraph and putting a subgraph on top of it. And then from there, you just change it a little bit on that 5%, and it's so much easier for the indexers to work with because they don't have to have two basic copies of databases that are huge. there's little subgraphs that can plug into other subgraphs. And we're looking for this network effect of high quality data that begets other high quality data and small modifications just for use cases. So those two things combined, where you have these databases and the schemas that are highly organized and well developed, and then being able to tweak those to your needs, that's what's coming out very soon. And that's going to feed very nicely into this AI training.
That was about to be what I was asking. I was going to say, what type of interesting use cases have you started to see this data being used for training purposes? And it sounds like pretty soon it's going to be whatever you want, because you can take the entire universe of data that you guys have and tweak it
Right.
however best fits your particular use case.
Yep.
Let's say that there is some data out there right now that a particular project is interested in accessing. How do they go about? Is there a way to I guess they would create it themselves, but is there a way for them to kind of suggest new subgraphs, or how do they have to build them, or is there a way that they can inquire to get maybe other teams who are more familiar with it to build them for them?
Let's see. I'm writing a link in here for you.
Yeah, great.
Let's see. I'm not sure if I have to put the HTTPS in there or not. Maybe does that link work? Yes, it does. So this is Builders DAO. They are a highly trained team of subgraph and substream developers, and they are for contract. So if there's any teams out there that want to get a well-designed subgraph substream that's custom made to their specifications, reach out to Builders DAO. They've got some really, really good builders that move. They know subgraphs and substreams inside out, and they're more than willing to work with anybody that needs something built. And then let's say they don't have the time to learn subgraphs and substreams. Totally fair. And from there, reach out to Builders DAO.
Got it. Makes sense. And is there, we were talking about earlier how, one of the primary benefits of utilizing these subgraphs is performance. You want this extremely optimized read capabilities. Are there different needs if you're working on an AI model from a performance perspective than, some of the other types of applications that you have built using subgraphs? Are there other considerations that you need to take it?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of data being pinned directly at chain head is not necessarily a high, super important for large amount of data consumption that is required for training models and making sure that they're polished. So, making sure that you are polling intervals are baked. And basically, like, you can't ask a database for 1 million bits of data. It's limited to 1,000, but there's polling mechanisms that you can keep on coming in regularly. There's also different factors such as, are we doing multi-chain? Are we doing a single chain? Are we doing multi-subgraph? Are we doing a single subgraph? There's all these considerations. I'm happy to talk with anyone, by the way, if anyone needs guidance on this and kind of like shaping a concept of, we have, these 20 smart contracts. What do we do? Is there a factory smart contract? Are you indexing potentially an infinite amount of smart contracts that are being deployed and interacted through an implementation? Like, that's another feature that we support. We can index a factory smart contract. And then we're really talking about events through subgraphs. Let's say no matter what, you need internal transactions. Like, you need that information. Well, subgraphs don't do that. Substreams do. So then that's where, I can help kind of guide people and get through to these little details that can get you started in the right direction.
Awesome. And now let's I think get a little bit more specific and talk about kind of bringing subgraphs to EXP chain. As you guys have been integrating, were there any challenges that came up, or how was that integration process coming on over to testnet?
Oh, you're talking to a guy who is not baked into the integration process. Shout out to Pranav and Ali. They are our developers who do integrations, and they do them so well. And so knowing them, there was no issues. How good they are.
Yeah. Well, I think it was a little bit of a loaded question because I kind of, things have been going very smoothly. So I guess I'll turn the question around to myself and just say, this has been one of the easiest experience is, everything is going according, it's very rare in this space to have things going according to timeline, and like everything has been super simple, super streamlined, super easy.
All right. I'm going to clip that and share that with my team. The fact of the matter is, right now we have $0 chain integrations. Any chains out there that are watching this, if you want to integrate with the graph, no cost. We are integrating quickly, and we have a very efficient system that we're working with that starts with integration and then follows very quickly with little things like this, where we go chatting and talking. And so, yeah, super happy to have EXP chain onboarded fast and easy. And we're really doing our very best to provide an option for decentralized read of everyone's chain in EVM and non-EVM as well. Like, we're really pushing.
Awesome. And so I guess let's talk. There's one particular area that we've spent a lot of time talking about on this show, which is kind of ZKML from a verifiable AI standpoint, and also from a kind of data privacy standpoint. And this idea of training AI models on personal data, utilizing the benefits of a decentralized network to get access to data that, we may not otherwise have, but in a way that might be able to retain some of the privacy that's important to so many of us. Have you guys started to think about how to facilitate this with some of the products that you guys are building?
Yeah, I can say there's been considerations about having subgraphs, substreams be private. And right now we're still in the place of the marketplace, and we want to push into that and keep them open data. And I think that's a good value decision right now. In terms of ZK, having that baked into subgraph substreams, I know we're looking at verifiability from chain to actually from the query all the way through our indexing stack. And so we're looking at building that out, where essentially if you get a response back from us and the subgraphs and or substreams and or the products that we're working on, that's 100% accurate. And so you don't have to go into an audit, and that's a very nice feature. But yes, we're looking at a few different options for just ensuring privacy in the future. We're right now interested very much so at the verifiability of that data, and then also looking at privacy, I'll say, in conjunction.
Got it. Well, and before I bring Anthony back up here, I know you have prepared a few links to share with the audience. So, if I'm a developer, I'm building on EXP chain, I have a good idea of the types of data that I need to integrate into my application, but I have just no idea where to start and how to get that data. Where can I go, and how can I get started?
So I'm biased because I support a lot of hackathons. I do online hackathons, in-person hackathons. I'm talking with people who are highly incentivized to work quickly and understand things ASAP to submit a bounty and submit a prize. So I'm going to share the hackathon resources, little blog post that pretty much is like, hey, you want to go ASAP 0 to 1, this is where you should start. And so I've read it. When did I make this? I don't remember when I made this, but I know everyone out here is not necessarily a hackathoner. However, I would say this would be a reasonable place to start. So I put 2 links there. Thegraph.com is just the main website, great place. And ASAP, get started. Hackathon resources is a great place to start there.
That's great. Well, we have a hackathon going on right now that's focused around our zero knowledge proof system expander, but coming up in a little bit, we will be having a EXP chain hackathon. And so we'll make sure to maybe include you guys in that as well for a session. Yeah. And get that documentation front and center so that anyone looking to utilize it can.
Yeah, absolutely.
Really excited
happy to help. Happy to help.
Awesome. All right. Well, with that, I see Anthony waiting in the wings to hop back in. He's been scanning the questions. Hopefully I didn't steal too many of them. Anthony, what do you got for us?
Thanks, guys. That was a awesome deep dive and great chat. Sorry, there were a few latency issues on my end there. So if there were any issues, I apologize. But yeah, we have over 300 questions here from our community. So if you guys already have touched on these, like just let me know quickly, and we can breeze through them because there's a lot. A lot you actually have covered, I imagine, Eric. And thank you again to the community for the brilliant questions. Marcus, I did catch that you mentioned the issues about vendor lock-in, and I know you're talking about how that obviously goes against the entire ethos of our industry and everything we do. So I think this is quite a cool opening question for both of you, which is what technical barriers are preventing decentralized AI from scaling rapidly? In terms of decentralized data, why is this better? And are there any lessons we could learn from centralized systems?
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to speak on that. And very quickly to answer, what's the advantage of decentralization within data? I think this entire industry is a good representation of the advantages of decentralization within data, regardless if it's actually writing or reading the data. In terms of actually reading the data, once again, data is data. If you look at a data point from a centralized solution or a decentralized solution, and that data point is accurately indexed and provided, it's data. However, you're looking at the business model. We're essentially saying, hey, if I choose the centralized provider, that's totally fine. Feel free to choose a centralized provider. The centralized providers will all compete with each other. And from there, they're all going to try to create their own little ecosystems that's very much controlled and vendor locked in on their own little ecosystems. And then they can do what they want with you. And you're welcome to do that. Nothing wrong with that. But that doesn't happen with the graph. We have indexers around the world, and you're competing with the indexers are competing for you. And so it's a completely inverted mechanism that if you would like to hop into, those indexers are looking to compete for you. Rather than the centralized extractive way of practice.
Yeah, I echo a lot of what you said. I mean, I would say, probably if you really wanted to have full control, you'd go out, you'd build your own indexer, you'd index all the data that you need, and you'd run it yourself on your own machines.
But that'd be centralized too.
It would still be centralized, but at least you'd be vendor locked in. You'd be vendor locked into yourself.
Yeah, we run the whole infrastructure, so that's a huge advantage. You don't have to do that.
Yeah,
but if you want to, you can have the software. We open source the software. You're welcome to give it a go.
No, and I was just going to say, obviously that's prohibitively expensive. It requires a significant technical expertise. So if you want to, have this solution without vendor lock-in that's permissionless, where you can have strong confidence that you're going to have access to the data that you need and the structure that you need. The graph obviously offers that, and it's a great experience for developers that don't have the opportunity to they don't have the resources of OpenAI.
Someday we will have that.
Yeah, it's coming. Just on that, in terms of resources, actually a lot of questions. I'm sure you guys have already touched on this again, so I apologize. But for new developers and developers wanting to come in and deploy subgraphs, do you guys at the Graph have any specific tools or a place of somewhere that these guys can jump in and learn how to do this?
Yep, I shared that link to Hackathon resources in there, and also I'll share a few other links just to drop them all in the chat. And if this is basically a smorgasbord, if you will, let's see, of a lot of links that are already in the Hackathon resources, but I'll just drop them in here just to keep going. There's some videos in there. There's some docs in there. Deploy a subgraph video and docs, substreams. There's the graph docs. In terms of, I think the fastest way to get started is that Hackathon resources link that already has a lot of these in there, and it's just really, really fast.
I've got a follow up to that. What are some of maybe a couple projects that really blew you away that came out of some of these hackathons that you guys do?
Let's see. I remember one. It was in Waterloo, and they were using substream data. So they decided to deploy a substream, and a substream is able to access raw blockchain data, all of it. So you're looking at everything from internal transactions, mempool, you're looking at all of it. And so as opposed to subgraphs, which are optimized for events and can do a few other things too, but So yeah, so it was looking at everything. They did two things on two sequential hackathons. One, they intentionally created failed transactions and logged in the mempool. Basically said, hey, these are going to be failed transactions. However, because they were able to access the data and it was verified, that became their state. The mempool became their state. And then from there, they made basically free transactions on Ethereum with zero gas. And I was like, that's pretty cool.
That is really interesting.
Yeah. Which I was like, okay. And so they're still operational right now. I think they're still, pushing their product, but at the same, I'm not sure if they're linked up with anybody, but that was really cool. And then, I mean, there's been a few others that I think were interesting, specifically with Polymarket. Polymarket popped off a few months ago, and one developer found comparative analytics were just not up to his par. This guy's a researcher. Yeah. And so he just said, hey, I'm going to make a subgraph and go ahead and transform all the data in the way that I'd like it to be in my dashboards based on the research that I'm doing. And he just went out and did it. And he submitted it for the hackathon. And I was like, it's cool because he's, yes, technical. However, his intent is not to be a developer. His intent to be as a researcher. So he said, I've got the capacity. Polymarket is all available, and it's not providing me the data I want. So he just said, I'm going to do it on a weekend. And he did it, and he submitted for the hackathon, and he won. And that was a really cool project to see someone looking at something that is popping off like Polymarket. There is a Polymarket subgraph that's very much in use. So that endpoint is available for everyone here today to go and check out the graph in the Polymarket subgraph and go ahead and see, hey, is it providing the data that I want? No. Go ahead and transform it, change it up, and then you can get the data exactly how you want.
Very cool.
Yeah, very cool. Very cool. On that vein, I did have a few questions, people asking, are we going to be able to use AI and coupled with the graph to predict the next bull run?
So I mean that is we're looking for crystal ball, and until there's a plugin called the Graph Crystal Ball, I'm just going to say I'm optimistic. We'll just say that.
Yeah, very, very cool.
A good idea for a hackathon project. Someone should build it.
Yes. Somebody do it. Populate dashboards,
predictive analytics
with high quality analytics that agentic AI is doing the analytics for us. So it actually doesn't have to be a dashboard, because if you're going to have agentic AI doing the analytics, you just simply build it well and just money go burr, machine go burr, and then that's it.
There you go, community and developers who are watching. Let's put that
I
on
think,
your roadmap.
and I'm joking, but it's a partial joke. I mean, I do feel like we're at a precipice right now as an industry where AI is maturing, crypto has matured, and crypto not only is maturing, but its accessibility is only increased and become more simple. I've been in this industry 4 years now, and so it's become so much more simple than it was 4 years ago. And so with AI being involved, I feel like there's such an incredible, if I can say, just kind of a Cambrian explosion, if you will, where it's really happening in this next, I'd say, 5 years. It's quite exciting.
Awesome. Love
Absolutely.
to hear it.
Yeah, very, very exciting times.
Yeah.
Really. I believe you guys may have touched on this, but very interesting. Like, if AI can verify the authenticity of data on chain, could this become the foundation for a trustless knowledge economy where misinformation is automatically flagged?
Yep. I mean, we're working on verifiability. We understand how important that is for artificial intelligence. Hallucinations are assumed that is going to happen. And until someone solves that problem, we're just going to continue assuming that is going to happen. So the best we can do at our later is provide verifiable data, and then trust in the AI experts to minimize hallucinations as much as possible.
Yeah, and more to come. I guess just to tease. I mean, this is obviously kind of an overlap of a lot of the stuff we spend a lot of time on, zero knowledge proofs and verifiability. So I think that it's clear that beyond kind of this integration with EXP chain, that in the long term, we'd love to collaborate on this verifiability piece. And so stay tuned for more information on that. But I know there's we both see huge value in this idea of verifiable data. And so excited to see what comes of that.
Yeah, same. Yeah, I do know our team would love to talk with yours and just understand what your perspectives are, because everyone knows their perspectives, and so it's helpful to gather others. So yeah, awesome.
Absolutely.
Yep, definitely a profound partnership, I believe. And just looking into my own little crystal ball, I think there's some very exciting things on the
Polyhedra, the graph crystal ball. That's going to be our product.
Yeah. The magic 8 ball. Yeah, that's brilliant. Very, very cool. So just on that same kind of vein, someone asking about what happens if AI begins generating synthetic blockchain data for analysis.
So falsified is what they're saying?
I guess that's what they're saying. Like, is there a way? I guess that speaks back to the misinformation piece.
Sure. And that is, I mean, who's there to verify that smart contracts are inputting accurate data? And so that's a different part of the layer. And so to verify the smart contracts, I know there's lots of auditing out there. I know there's oracles. I think oracles might be the best solution that come to mind at this time. Do you have any thoughts about that?
Sorry, my brain was just spinning about this question because it kind of reminded me of a conversation I think we had earlier on this, not today, but in a previous week's episode, where we're talking about, I think a lot of people, when they think about AI and the things that can go wrong, they jump to synthetic data as maybe a cause of some of these issues. But I don't know if necessarily that is the case. I mean, synthetic data can be used to improve models and can be used in, ways that may be beneficial. So I think rather than focusing on, is this data real or is this data synthetic, it should be we're using it for a purpose, and, that we have transparency and verifiability so that we understand the source of certain data types, but that not necessarily we need something that just says like all synthetic data is bad and all real data is good, because also you can have real data that could cause issues in some of your AI training as well.
Yeah, great points. Yeah, I feel
absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel there's every layer is improving. From what I could see, its ability to harden against attacks, all the way from front end to back end to smart contract to middleware to everything. And that's just the nature of any industry. In tech, there's going to be attacks. There's going to be synthetic data, and should that data and when that data occurs, the marketplace, the hardening will be tested, and that's okay. That's not a bad thing. It's like, I think that's just part and parcel with people being people. And the infrastructure and the marketplace shouldn't reward that. It should catch it, and then from there move forward. And we all understand that. So we're doing our best. And I would say, of course, there's going to be attacks. There always will be. And there's always going to be synthetic data. Always will be. And from there, we do our very best to reward the value that's actually there.
Yep.
Absolutely. As long as the positive, outweighs, then it's all good. So I just lost my train of thought there. I'm trying to scroll through some of these questions. I know that we're coming up on 45 minutes as well, gents. So I might just try and pick out one or two more for you. Sure. I'm not sure if you spoke to this yet, Marcus, but it's quite a good question from Leoton. So the graph indexes blockchain using subgraphs, but AI is increasingly being used to optimize database structures. Is the graph working on AI-powered auto-optimization for subgraph indexing to improve data retrieval speeds and reduce costs for developers?
Great question. There is right now a manual way to do that. We have, I think, 9 we have best practices, essentially saying, hey, yes, this is customizable APIs, which is great, and also it's customizable APIs, which means developers have to understand what they're doing. Where if they could easily take a subgraph and make it slow by making some changes that they didn't realize. So those are already in written format. They're very simple changes. We are also working with I'm aware that our CLI team is working on a feature that will essentially allow an audit of anyone's subgraph as they're building it, to just run through the subgraph in their editor and say, hey, are there any flags that need to be changed, any to-dos that need to be added? And we'll point them out to you. So yes, we are heading in the direction of improving a subgraph's code and improving the speed and cost effectiveness with it, and doing that in a somewhat automated format where it's almost it's a checker. And until then, the best practices, I think they're I think I shared the link. Yeah, the subgraph optimization tips. I'll just share that again. That is the best way that is able right now. And stay tuned for graph audit in the CLI.
Cool. A little subgraph grader. You can get you could populate it with a score. You got
it matters.
Your subgraph got an 87.
No, it matters. It's funny for funsies. I think it was like almost a year ago, maybe 6 months ago. I made a subgraph worst practices subgraph. I was like, I'm going to ruin this subgraph. I'm going to just I want to make the worst piece of subgraph technology I can. And I had DevOps, I had my Grafana dashboard looking at the optimized version and the unoptimized version, and it was, I think, around 200 times slower.
Whoa!
And like, in the invert of that, 200 times faster if you go ahead and do the optimization techniques. So yes, I was building code that was intentionally poorly run. I get it; it's not a fair direct comparison. However, these optimizations do work, and difficult to compare in all circumstances, but at the same time they do work significantly. There's a few in there. One of our lead engineers in Graph Node tested in about as an objective environment as possible, and he noticed with just one of those improvements or two of them combined, it was like a 45% improvement in indexing speed just with two of those.
Wow.
So yeah, so please use those best practices. That really makes everyone happier. You guys, it's cheaper, and also the indexers. They like optimized subgraphs that they can index, and it's easier on their systems.
Awesome.
Awesome. Very, very cool. And thanks for sharing all of those links as well, Marcus. Everyone in the community, we will be sharing them across Discord and our channels as well.
Awesome.
And if anyone would like to follow on, I'm sure there's going to be some follow-up questions. Can they get in contact with you directly, Marcus? I mean, I know you've got your show as well, and where can they follow the graph?
Yeah. I'll just share my Twitter. Feel free to hop on my Twitter and send me a DM. DMs are open, and more than happy to chat with anybody there and continue educating. My job as DevRel is educating and onboarding developers, making sure the experience is as enjoyable and as smooth, and also technologically appropriate for the use case they're in. So yeah, we could have a good time, and then also talk some brass tacks and really make sure that subgraphs and or substreams are the right fit for you.
Awesome.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. Yeah, and thank you, Eric, for all the brilliant questions. I know the community always loves it when you're on here because you do draw out so many. You do make my job a little bit difficult trying to sift through the 380 questions I have here. But thank you so much, Marcus, for joining us. And thanks, Eric. That was some great insights and really exciting partnership. I see a really very bright future and a lot to roll out. So yeah, we'll keep everybody posted and watch this space.
Thanks a lot, Marcus.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah. Thanks, guys. Till next time.
Bye.
Take care.